Hey everyone, mypokepop here, and today I thought I'd take the time to make a video where I talk about what's been happening with me and the world for the last few months. Just because, as you know, my streaming and my video uploads has gotten more spotty, less frequent, and like I said in my past live streams and videos, I just like to be real with you all, and be open to talking about mental health issues and different issues around the world. I even said that in a video where I was rebranding my channel from Pokemon cards to, to live streams and other things. But anyway, part of why I haven't been on YouTube as much is because of my big transition moving from Michigan to California. As I knew it was going to be incredibly stressful making a big life decision and making a big transition. And for those of you who don't know, people with ADHD, at least, we're all different, but for me in particular, and for many people, we have trouble with transitions, especially life transitions, big ones. It can be very stressful. I moved states. I had to get a new job. I had to save up enough money to buy a new apartment. I had to move back with my parents for a little bit. I was very slowly running out of medication because I had to find a new psychiatrist, and because California laws are different than Michigan's. I have to find a psychiatrist here to prescribe the medication I'm on. And on top of that, I started my new job. If you don't know, my main job right now is I'm a delivery driver. I deliver packages for Amazon. And so, it was pretty tough at first, especially since I started during the holidays. And then, I started to get used to it. Everything was going good for a while. And then, I kind of didn't want to, but I knew I had to go back to school. It had been a couple months since I've been in school. I knew it was going to be rough transitioning back into school. So I didn't expect it to be easy or necessarily do stellar. But then, as you know, COVID-19 hit. The whole world was stricken with this pandemic. And I didn't expect that. I still try to be fine with it. But slowly, work got harder. Our loads got bigger as people started being at home more and ordering more. And so that put me out there, and it was hard on my body and harder on me mentally. And not only that, but on top of all that, we had the riots because the George Floyd thing happening and the unfortunate event with George Floyd. It was heartbreaking to watch, and not to mention that, but the riots that ensued because of that. And, I am out there on the streets of LA delivering every day, pretty much. And so it was very stressful. It was the first time in my life where it felt like I was putting my life at risk for the very first time. And it was a scary and very stressful thought. So anyway, all that stress there and just in combination made me fall behind in school, made me fall behind on my streaming. And so like all I could do really is just go to work, eat, sleep, repeat. Really just going through the daily motions. And when I didn't notice what was slowly happening over time is the stress and anxiety inside of me was just building up more and more and more. And so like now I'm at a time where my lower back pain has started again, and I'm just now realizing it's probably because mainly of the stress, not really because of what I do for work, even though it is a lot of manual labor. So I can barely walk, and it hurts to walk, it hurts to stand. And I can't afford to take. This is my second day off work already. I called in, and I can't afford to take off any more time than that. So whether I feel better or not by tomorrow, I'm still gonna have to go to work anyway because the bills have to get paid, and I gotta save my sick hours for a time where I actually am truly sick because you don't know what might happen. But kind of reviewing, comparing and contrasting my life in Michigan versus here, I had a pretty good balance in Michigan, and you all saw my live streaming side of things. I was constantly live streaming. It was a very consistent schedule. I was even I had a schedule, for a specific time I would live stream eventually, and I was really happy. I was enjoying it, and I went to work, school, live streamed. I cleaned, I cooked, and I was taking care of all my responsibilities, and I was doing a lot. I was even uploading vlogs. I even got to meet Veronica Taylor, the first English actor for Ash Ketchum in the Pokemon series, which is a lifelong dream of mine. Things were great, and I knew, something I dreaded, I knew was going to happen, was that once we made a decision to officially transition our lives, make that big transition in our lives, to move from Michigan to California, I knew something like this was going to happen. I just didn't expect all these other external factors like the pandemic and the whole rioting to actually happen in the next, within the next year, and it had even I think it has been a full year now, but a little bit more now, and it's been really tough. But in the end, I realized that I got to get back on streaming because I know it's a hobby of mine, but it also makes me happy. When your mind is focused on work and school, productivity, it does things to you. It really dampens you. It really degrades your mental state of mind. And long story short, I'm just not happy. The worry and the stress is getting to me, and it's affecting me physically now, as well as psychologically. And one of the telling signs for that is when I, stop having energy to do things and stop having motivation when I spend more time like watching TV or just kind of zoning out on a screen or something. So I realized I really do have to get back to this YouTube thing because as much as this YouTube thing is for you all, it's also for me. I didn't realize just how important it was for me to stay on this. And going off of that topic, I think it has to be said that what happened with George Floyd was tragic. It was terrible. It was horrific. I'm just going to straight out say it was homicide. It was unlawful homicide. I don't know when I don't know when homicide is ever lawful, but anyway, he was straight up murdered. And a lot of things have already been said, so I'm just going to kind of like talk about something from a different angle, like how we move forward from here, possible solutions. Like, we all agree it's bad, so there's no point in, dwelling on that fact. But one thing I noticed, being a minority myself, I was born into a Filipino family, Filipino culture, but I'm a mixed child. A lot of even Filipinos have a hard time identifying my ethnicity. But I consider myself Asian American, mixed Asian American. I'm part Spaniard, Japanese, Chinese, who knows what else. I still got to take that 23andMe thing. Someone remind me about that constantly in the comments. Anyway, so one thing I noticed with minority groups across the United States, I noticed not just in California, but even in Michigan and in other states, is that there tends to be this divide between let's say like white Americans and just minorities in general. And the problem with that is there's too many barriers and walls that are separating us because of that. And that's okay. We've been dealing with that as a human race for a long time, people living in different countries, but technology has allowed us to communicate better and live amongst each other and visit each other's countries more easily. But even amongst our own country, we still have communities that are isolated from each other, which is okay, because we tend to, as human beings, we tend to congregate towards those that are similar to us with similar values, and that's fine. That's just natural. There's nothing wrong with that. What I do have a problem with, which I think needs improvement, is the level of animosity and we tend to have as minorities, and I'm including myself in this because I realized this about myself in the last few years. But it's our tend to have the animosity towards I'm just gonna say towards white Americans. They seem to have they seem to get this bad rap, about being racist and being what's it called, assuming stereotypes about minorities and doing all that. But what you'll find is if you actually get to know some of these people, most of them actually aren't that way, at least not on purpose. A lot of times they grew up in communities where they're not exposed to different cultures and ethnicities from all over the United States or around the world. I mean, they may have never seen or really interacted with someone from Latin America or someone from Asia, and that's why they have these stereotypes and they seem like they're less sensitive. But the fact is, they just don't know. They're unaware. And they will continue to be that way if we continue to isolate and wall ourselves off as minority people from white Americans, here in the United States. And so my solution here is let's reach across the aisle. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the only way we're going to move forward here. Let's bridge that gap. Let's interact with them. Let's share our culture. Let's share our traditions. Let's just share how we grew up, how we see things, how we were raised to see things, how we were taught to see things. Even within like let's say the Philippines, which is where my parents are from, there's different subcultures within the overall culture of the Philippines. And it's crazy. There's so many different languages. There's so many different cuisines. There's so many different religions. Well, most of the country's Catholic, but there's a different way of life for everybody. I mean, you wouldn't judge an isolated tribal people, that been living on an island away from the rest of humanity for assuming things about you, because it's not their fault. They've never seen someone like you. And it's never ever going to get better if we continue to say like, oh, just all white people are racist, I don't like white people, and they should just stay over there and we stay over here. That's not going to work. And complaining about them all the live long day is not going to help. And there's plenty of of white people out there who are willing to who are extending their hands, are willing to reach across the aisle and learn more about our cultures, as minority people, all the non-American cultures. And that's great. But we need to reach across the aisle. We need to let go of our anger and our hurt. I know we've been hurt, and a lot. But like take George Floyd's family. They're advocating for peace, for peace and for justice. And I'm sure they want there to be no conflict. They want peace, and the only way that's going to happen is if they reach across the aisle. And I think the problem with a lot of these cops is they don't even realize. I mean, this cop probably realized it, but he didn't care. Like, he straight up in front of the cameras, killed the guy. I mean, it's horrible. But I mean, I've read up a lot of blogs and stories and media posts, social media posts about white people not even realizing that they had these biases. I read it in textbooks as well. Actually, I think about it. These biases about people and these stereotypes that they've kind of like internalized. And, they don't really realize it until later on, which is, and that's okay. That's okay. And, we shouldn't get too mad about them about that. Like it's just like something that we as minorities need to help them with. It's an opportunity for us to, share information about us, our people, our traditions, our cultures, our way we view things. And we can do the same with them. We learn their culture and, whatever traditions or cultures or religions or non-religions that they have. You know what I mean? Like when a cop looks at a black person walking down the street, they're automatic. I mean, the ones that have done, these things anyway, not all cops are like this, but the cops who stop, a black person who's jogging at night or just driving down the street with their, with their wives or spouses or whatever, the ones who get stopped a lot by those cops probably, when they see these black people, they think, automatically they have that association like, hey, I'm going to check this guy out real quick, and I'm going to check these black people. I'm going to pull them over more often. I'm going to talk to them more often because, they associate them more with crimes. And, and it's horrible, it's not something that should be going on. But, once you get to know, I used to be the same way, like a lot of Asian people are raised with these stereotypes and mindsets about Americans. And, that's something I'm aware of and I deal with and, every day. But I'm aware of it, and it has made me more accepting and more willing to learn about, not just about other minorities, but about, white Americans and how they live and how they see things, how they are. This is what led me to this point. And, I think this really needs to be said because, like, for example, with black people, I started, at a certain point, I started working with them. I started, talking to them. I started making friends with them. I started living among them. And once I started to, get to know them better as a community, not just individual people, or just like beyond the stereotypes we were presented by our families and by TV, by the media, you can see that they're people too. And they have their own way of life. They have their own cultures. They have their own viewpoints, and they have their own reason for doing things, and you realize this is what they've been taught for generations. This is the way life has been, just like it is for every single culture, whether you're a minority or not in the United States or around the world. And that's something we need to realize and be open to. Just be constantly just open. Don't take criticism with every bit of criticism that's given to you with a grain of salt. Don't automatically just dismiss it. But of course, the type of criticism you should dismiss is when they're just straight up insulting you. It's just disrespectful, and you shouldn't take that. But if someone's giving you constructive criticism, give it some thought. Uh, go to someone that you really trust and talk about it. Ask about your qualities, and I don't know, have someone accountable in your life, and don't be afraid to reach across the aisle. Us as minorities, there's actually a lot of white allies, I guess you could say, out there, and non-white allies who are trying to help. Not just black people, but every minority who's being oppressed. Being an Asian American, it's hard to see, but we do have our own biases to fight against. Of course, it's nothing compared to what our darker skinned brethren and sisters have to go through. But it's just like I've experienced my fair share of all that stuff too, and I think it's just mostly due to a lack of connection between the two sides, the minorities and just the white Americans. There's just too much of a disconnect and a big wide gap. And honestly, the more we get to know each other, the more we realize how much the same we are and how much our differences can bring us together as one big gigantic puzzle, as one big community. We complete each other, we complement each other, we bring each other up. I mean, I don't talk about this much, but as you all know, I'm a Christ follower. I don't like to use the term Christian just because it comes with negative connotations, but whatever the case, it also teaches inclusivity and that we are all part of the body of Christ, just basically the part of the same assembly of people. And, we're all just people, no matter where we're from. Our differences actually, make us who we are and can be the things that actually bring us together. But we have to take the first step and reach across the aisle, make a bridge across that gap to bring us together. And I think that's probably one of the best solutions I think we come up with right now as conceptually. Obviously, better training, more cultural awareness training for police, longer training, what to do in certain situations, when or when not to use lethal force. And those are the first steps. And I think the more we spread that message and the more we get involved and not just post something about it on our Twitter accounts, and the more we just need to talk about it, and then from talking, it goes from thoughts to talking to action. And that's when it'll happen. I'm already doing that every day. In Michigan, I learned much because it's just here in California there's some white people here, but it's easy here to kind of be secluded within cultural communities here. Like there's a Koreatown, there's a Chinatown, a historic Filipino town, there's a Thai town, there's a whole community for different people everywhere. And while there are a lot of mixed neighborhoods here, there are still a lot of other neighborhoods that are still, like, for the most part, still kind of how do I say for the most part still mostly just the same ethnicities or people who have similar backgrounds and cultures. And so they still have less opportunities to learn about other people from other different cultures and stuff. So, and it's not that, they're purposely trying to be a certain way. I mean, I'm not talking about people like the cop, but, the people like that are just straight up racist. But there's, as far as implicit biases go, as far as those things that white people are just wondering about, they don't mean to be offensive. They just don't know. They're just curious and wondering. We need to be there. Look past it. Don't take it as a personal attack. Get over your feelings. It's not, that big of a deal. And hey, just be like, okay, well, I mean, that's not necessarily true. It's actually this way and actually that way. So, that's just how it is. And that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my little blurb there. This video is like almost 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there, do some editing, upload it. I also have another video coming I've been working on. It's Pokemon related, but I'll talk about that in that video. Anyway, y'all, stay safe. Remember, reach across the aisle. Don't be afraid to. Let's not criticize each other for our differences, but let us be curious about it and praise each other for it. Even joke about it. Be friendly. You won't gain or lose anything just from being a nice person and not being judgmental. We shouldn't judge each other because everybody has something to be judged. So we really shouldn't be judging each other. Anywho, that's it for me. I hope you all have a great and fantastic rest of your weekend. MyPokepop signing out.